When the Harris family started trending, it wasn't for another music hit. It was because everything they'd built over 2 decades was collapsing in real time. The public saw smiles, TV fame, and the image of a family that had survived everything. But behind the cameras, the cracks were deepening. And when Tiny finally hit T.I. with divorce papers, it wasn't out of the blue. It was the sound of years of chaos finally catching up. The last straw? Their son, King Harris, spiraling into a mess so wild that not even the family's fame or fortune could fix it. It all started one October night in 2024. King was behind the wheel of his BMW, speeding out of a gas station like he was untouchable. The timing couldn't have been worse. Within seconds, he nearly slammed into a cop car. When officers walked up to his window, the air reeked of weed. Then they spotted a gun tucked into his waistband. It was every headline nightmare rolled into one. The cuffs went on fast, but the real explosion happened when they ran his name. An outstanding 2022 warrant popped up. Speeding, driving on a suspended license, and a DUI. A past he thought he'd escaped came roaring back. And the internet got its hands on the arrest footage and everything changed. It wasn't the King people were used to, not the loud, cocky kid who loved to flex. This time, he was calm, quiet, almost eerily composed. You could see the regret in his eyes, like he finally understood that all the bravado and all the posturing had led him here. Even the arresting officers seemed surprised, but calm didn't save him. King still landed in DeKalb County Jail before being transferred to Pickens County after the warrant recall. As soon as the video went viral, the internet turned the moment into a circus. Memes exploded, comments were savage, and one line went viral. Trust fund prison punk. People couldn't get enough of roasting him, but behind every joke was a darker truth. This wasn't just about King anymore, it was the kind of family fallout that could burn everything down. Tiny had reached her limit. The latest arrest wasn't just another headline to ignore. It was the wake-up call she'd been trying to avoid for years. She'd defended her husband, stood by him through scandal after scandal, but when T.I. publicly disowned their son, something in her broke. She couldn't stomach watching the man she'd loved for decades turn his back on their child. So she filed for divorce. Not quietly, but decisively. Every document pointed to one thing. King's chaos had torn the family apart. The timing couldn't have been crueler. For T.I., it was like watching his legacy go up in flames. His career, his marriage, his reputation, all unraveling because of the one thing he thought he could control. His own bloodline. What made it sting even more was how familiar it all felt. This wasn't new territory for T.I. He'd lived that life. The arrests, the headlines, the hard lessons. The difference was he had always believed he could keep his son from repeating them. But while he was in and out of prison, King grew up without him. Most of his childhood was spent with his grandmother. On paper, he was rich, but in reality, he grew up without the presence of a father who was actually there. T.I.'s fame filled the house. His absence filled the silence. By the time he returned for good, King had already learned how to live like he didn't need anyone. That gap between them grew into resentment, and resentment turned into rebellion. That rebellion went public in 2022. A Waffle House worker accidentally added pickles to King's order, a simple mistake that spiraled into a viral meltdown. King screamed, cursed, and filmed the entire scene, posting it for the world to see. He expected applause. Instead, the internet tore him apart. Overnight, he became the poster child for spoiled entitlement. Fans dragged T.I. too, asking how a father who'd preached discipline could raise a son like that. For Tiny, the embarrassment was unbearable. And for T.I., it was another reminder that his authority at home had completely collapsed. But T.I. wasn't about to stay silent. In a video that would later define their family's public unraveling, he warned King that his behavior would only lead one place: prison. He said he'd already made peace with it. The words sounded cold, but they came from someone who had lived that same pain. He wasn't lecturing his son, he was predicting his future. The problem was his warning came years too late. By the time he tried to reel King in, the damage was already done. Tiny saw it as a desperate performance, a man trying to save face for the cameras, not his son. And she wasn't having it. The tension came to a boiling point at an Atlanta Falcons game. It started with words but ended in chaos. King said he didn't grow up privileged, and T.I. snapped. Cameras caught the moment the argument turned physical. Father and son clashing like strangers. For the internet, it was entertainment. For Tiny, it was humiliation. Watching her husband go off on their son in public was the last straw. Then she found out T.I. had kicked King out of the house afterward. That decision shattered what little peace was left. Tiny saw it not as tough love, but as abandonment. She packed up her emotions and filed the divorce papers that would make it official. The family was done. The more people dug, the more the story twisted. Tiny accused T.I. not just of neglecting his son, but of cheating and emotional manipulation. She painted a picture of a man who had spent years lying about changing, while repeating the same old patterns. And that was the most painful part. King wasn't rebelling randomly. He was mirroring his father's worst traits: the temper, the ego, the recklessness, all learned behaviors. Tiny finally realized King hadn't just inherited T.Y.'s fame, he'd inherited his flaws. Watching history repeat itself was more than she could bear. So, when T.I. disowned King after his arrest, it wasn't just a father rejecting his son. It was a man rejecting his own reflection. The pain ran even deeper when T.I. announced on a podcast that he was about to become a grandfather again. Through King. To Tiny, it sounded like celebration, not concern. Their son was becoming a father while still trapped in his own chaos, and instead of calling it what it was, a warning sign, Tai-Si. I turned it into a soundbite. Tiny couldn't believe what she was hearing. King himself leaned into the moment, posting, "Welcome, King Jr. Time to take over," with a new track called Dear Son. For a moment, it looked like he might actually grow up. Maybe fatherhood would teach him what his own father couldn't. Maybe the cycle could finally break. But timing has a cruel sense of humor. While King was posting proud pictures of his newborn, the footage of his arrest was still going viral. The internet didn't forget, and neither did his parents. Every post, every meme, every headline reminded them that their private heartbreak had become a public spectacle. T.I. tried to stay calm, playing the role of the stoic father, but the disappointment in his eyes said it all. Tiny saw it too. The shame, the guilt, the unspoken truth that their family might never recover. That was the moment she knew she was done. Done protecting, done pretending, done hoping for change that never came. Now the Harris family stands in ruins. A son chasing respect in all the wrong places. A mother fighting to protect what's left of her peace. A father torn between pride and regret. And the whole world watching, waiting for the next chapter in a story that feels both tragic and inevitable. Maybe King will change. Maybe he'll break the pattern. Or maybe he'll just keep walking the same road his father once did. One mistake, one lesson, one heartbreak at a time. Either way, the world will be watching. Because when family and fame collide, there's no script. Just the raw, unfiltered chaos of real life playing out in front of millions.